All right, so today we're diving into something super relevant, something I know a lot of you have been asking about, leveling up your cross-cultural competency.
It's a big one, for sure. And it's
Yeah.
something that I think a lot of people, myself included, are always working on.
For sure. And I love that you said that because it's not about being perfect,
Hmm.
right? It's about constantly learning and growing.
Exactly.
So we're going to unpack 5 really actionable tips to make those interactions across cultures smoother, more meaningful, just better, really.
I like it. So where are we starting?
Let's start with tip number 1, becoming a culture connoisseur. Does that sound a bit much?
Maybe a little much.
Okay, but you get what I mean. It's like approaching cultural differences
Yeah.
with this sense of curiosity, almost like you're like exploring a new place.
Yeah, I love that because it's easy to just kind of scratch the surface, right? But just like when you travel to a new place, there's so much more beneath the surface.
Totally. It's about digging deeper, right? Like take, for example, certain Middle Eastern cultures. Pouring your own drink at someone's home could actually be seen as like a little disrespectful.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. It basically signals that you're doubting their hospitality.
Yeah.
It's all about waiting for them to offer a refill. Or you politely ask if you'd like some more.
It's those subtle differences that can really make or break an interaction.
Right. It reminds me of this one time I was working with a team in Japan. And
Uh-oh.
yeah, it wasn't pretty. I really misjudged the situation because I went in assuming everyone was on the same page, direct communication and all.
Yeah, we've all been there.
It was a learning experience for sure. Which brings us to tip number 2, I think. Opening your mind.
Which is so, so important because, like you said, it's so easy to assume that our way is the right way. But it's about actively stepping outside of our own worldview and trying to see things from another person's perspective, even if, and this is key, even if we don't fully understand or agree with it.
Totally. Because everyone's coming from a different place with a different set of experiences, right?
Exactly. And that takes us to our next point, which is becoming a communication chameleon.
Ooh, I like that. Tell me more.
So think about how you'd adjust your communication style depending on who you're talking to, right? Like if you're talking to your boss versus your best friend versus your grandma, you probably communicate in slightly different ways, right?
100%.
Right.
I'm basically a different person with all of them.
Exactly. And it's the same idea with cultural differences. You kind of have to be mindful of those subtle cues.
So it's like tailoring your communication to resonate with different cultures. What would be like an example of that?
Okay, so let's say you need to give feedback to a colleague from a culture that values indirect communication. Instead of directly pointing out a mistake, which could be perceived as like really harsh, you might phrase it as a suggestion for improvement, like, hey, I was thinking it might be interesting to try it this way next time, really focusing on the positive aspects first.
It's about being sensitive, being respectful, which brings us perfectly to tip number 4, RESPECT.
The foundation of it all, really.
It may seem obvious, but it's so crucial because respect goes beyond just like tolerating different viewpoints, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's about understanding that someone else's perspective, shaped by their unique cultural background, is just as valid as yours. It's about creating a space where those different viewpoints can coexist. And even when you disagree, which you inevitably will sometime.
Right, because you're not always going to agree.
Exactly. But even when you don't, approaching the conversation with respect opens the door for dialogue, for understanding.
Totally. Okay, ready for our final tip.
Get me.
Feedback is your friend. This one's huge.
So important.
I know it can be a little uncomfortable to ask for, but it's the only way to really grow, right?
100%. And when it comes to cross-cultural competency, you're always learning.
Mm.
So don't hesitate to ask colleagues or clients from different cultures for feedback. Something as simple as, is there anything I could do to make my communication more culturally sensitive? Can be really, really valuable.
You're not going to offend anyone by asking that.
No, not at all. If anything, they're going to appreciate that you care enough to ask.
It shows that you're trying.
Exactly.
So to wrap this all up, it's a journey, not a destination,
I
right?
like that. It really is.
Each interaction, each conversation is an opportunity for us to learn and grow.
And remember, the most important thing is to approach these interactions with genuine curiosity, a willingness to learn, and an open mind.
Couldn't have said it better myself.